The Subcommittee on Employment and Workplace Safety will come to order. We're here today to talk about preparing workers across America to effectively use AI in the workplace. Ranking Member Braun and I will each give an opening statement. Then we'll introduce the witnesses. After the witnesses give their testimony, each senator, those of us here watching online or coming into the meeting, will each have 5 minutes to ask their questions. Last year, this subcommittee heard from witnesses on the potential benefits of AI to our economy, but concluded that those benefits will only become a reality if we have a well-trained workforce. Since then, AI has only continued to explode with innovation and has remained at the forefront of conversations for both employers and workers as new applications of AI continue to transform the workplace. Unlike most previous technologies, like all previous technologies, previous technologies like personal computers or cell phones, they initially had substantial barriers that limited consumer access. AI already has achieved wide access. AI-powered applications are being used by students and workers and business owners all across the country. By some estimates, more than 60% of companies are exploring how to integrate some form of generative AI technology, even as we speak. Additionally, some workers already have their own subscriptions to AI applications and are using them to enhance their work, to accelerate their projects. Bottom line, AI clearly does have the potential to change how we all work. While some tasks may become more automated, the majority of jobs will use processes that employ in some form of collaboration between AI and human-run systems. Despite the clear interest in AI technologies from employers and workers alike, we have more work to do to create widely available AI literacy training opportunities to put everyone on an even playing field. The rapidly changing landscape in AI technologies is making some employees and even some industries hesitant to invest in comprehensive training opportunities. They're not sure if what they're training will be useful and remain relevant in a relatively short period of time. But we know that having a well-trained and informed workforce is really essential to making sure that AI is used responsibly and that both workers and businesses can reap the full benefits of the tools. For example, human talent is needed to evaluate outputs generated by AI for accuracy or to tailor AI-generated concepts into customized solutions that support their customers. AI literacy should also include an emphasis on methods to help workers identify AI-generated content versus human-generated content. AI literacy training is going to help empower employers to choose the safest applications for their workforce and make sure workers can give well-informed feedback about their experiences with AI. I think, we've read the room. Now's the time to make sure every worker has access to the professional development training that they need to succeed. That's why earlier this year we introduced the Lifelong Learning Act with Senators Budd and Peters to make sure we can appropriately invest in training opportunities for current and future workers. Senator Braun and I have also been working together to make sure that the Department of Labor, as well as other agencies, understand the urgent need for these programs and need to address the safety factors connected to that urgent need. During today's hearing, we'll hear from panelists from various sectors and communities who are providing or benefiting AI literacy training opportunities. As AI technologies and training programs change over time, we'll need everyone, our union partners, employers, nonprofits, everyone, to make sure that we get this right and we set ourselves up for success. Before I yield to Senator Braun for his opening remarks, I'd like to enter into the record a statement from the AFL-CIO Technology Institute about the importance of these partnerships, the importance of workers' voices as we scale training opportunities. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ranking Member Braun for his opening remarks and to introduce our first witness.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the witnesses for being here today. Since our Subcommittee's last hearing on this subject matter, AI technology has only advanced, its prevalence has only grown in the American workplace. Today we are going to take a look at AI technology, how it is affecting employers and employees, and learn what they should be prepared for down the road. Prior to becoming a senator, I spent 37 years running a logistics and distribution company, and we poured technology into it. There's no doubt that when you use technology correctly, it gives you unbelievable benefits. But we've never seen this horizon before. Embracing technology should be beneficial to everyone. It generally has been. But here, when the people that have brought it to the forefront have issued it with a stark warning, be careful. We'd actually like it to be regulated. You've never heard that in the past about most things that come to the marketplace. There's broad interest about this from across the political spectrum, and certainly it shouldn't be politicized along the way. If there is a role for Congress to play in regulating this technology, it should come from following careful consideration and informed recommendations from nonpartisan experts in all affected fields. It's going to take a different type of framework to fully implement and regulate such advanced technology. However, in doing so, the goal shouldn't be to kill the technology by smothering it, because if we do that, we never get to the point of how it's going to be beneficial. The past couple of years, we have seen unprecedented development and adoption of it across industries. We must ensure that government leaders are trained to keep up with the advancements in AI and recognize the benefits and risks of this powerful tool. In this place, and most governments have been the slowest to embrace normal technology along the way. So it's critical that if we're going to try to do something to create a framework, that we learn something about it. Senator Gary Peters and I introduced the AI Leadership Training Act to create an AI training program for federal supervisors and management officials. The aim of this bill is to help improve the federal workforce's understanding of its applications and to ensure that leaders who oversee the use of these tools understand its full potential benefits and risks. Legislation like this is a small step to improve our understanding of this technology and how it will impact our workplaces in the immediate future. Today, we're going to hear from witnesses who will shed light on some of those expectations, and will also provide examples of how AI is already affecting the American workplace. We should aspire to bring the technology to the point where it can create benefits for the workplace, but we should also continue to be mindful and have conversations about where this technology can take us along the way. That's the purpose of the hearing, and I look forward to it. And before I yield, Mr. Chairman, I would like to submit a letter from the National Retail Federation, which outlines the views of the retail industry on this important matter.
Great. And were you going to introduce the first witness, Mr. Meyer?
After you say it's okay to put this into the record.
Without objection.
There we go. Okay. Thank you. My privilege to introduce Mr. Ken Meyer. Mr. Meyer is the Senior Director of Human Resources at Ryan Health, which is based in New York City. He is an HR professional with nearly 40 years of experience and has served as the president of the New York City chapter of the Society for Human Resource Management. We welcome your expertise here today. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much, Senator Braun. Good afternoon, Chairman Hickenlooper and Ranking Member Braun. Thank you for bringing us together for this important conversation about preparing workers for AI. My name is Ken Meyer, and I am the immediate past president of the New York City chapter of SHRM, the Society for Human Resource Management. As the trusted authority on all things work, SHRM is the foremost expert, researcher, advocate, and thought leader on issues and innovations impacting today's evolving workplaces. With nearly 340,000 members in 180 countries, SHRM touches the lives of more than 362 million workers and their families globally. I have over 35 years of human resources experience within the healthcare sector. I currently serve as the Senior Director of Human Resources at Ryan Health, a Manhattan-based community health center with nearly 500 employees. My testimony today is on behalf of SHRM and does not necessarily reflect the views of Ryan Health. SHRM's research shows that workplaces around the country are already using AI to enhance their organization's capabilities. 1 in 4 organizations currently use AI to support HR-related activities, with nearly 2/3 of these adopters implementing AI in HR within the past year. A SHRM survey from earlier this year finds that among HR leaders whose organizations are currently using generative AI, 75% report that it has enhanced efficiency, 69% say it has increased creativity, and 65% say it has improved work quality. As more businesses embrace AI, American workers will need opportunities to learn, adapt, and use this technology to remain competitive. SHRM's research shows that 30% of HR leaders already feel greater pressure to innovate, and 28% believe there is an increased need to upskill and reskill workers. Because of this, AI curiosity and AI literacy are new, must-have skills for workers in nearly every role. Workers, including their managers, need to understand both the opportunities and risks presented by AI. This training helps managers identify when AI can enhance efficiency and when it's inappropriate or too risky to use, so they can manage these risks. SHRM supports thoughtful legislation and regulation that promotes rather than stifles workplace and workforce innovation. However, state and local legislative and regulatory efforts regarding AI are creating a confusing patchwork of obligations for employers, putting some AI applications out of reach of the small and medium-sized businesses because of the cost and uncertainty of regulatory compliance. Last year, New York City began imposing new requirements on employer uses of automated employment decision tools. The cost of complying with the new law and the uncertainty regarding AI regulation mean that employers, especially small and medium-sized businesses, may choose not to use AI, which unfortunately may place them at a competitive disadvantage. SHRM believes that overlapping laws and regulations regarding AI may lead to unintended consequences that create uncertainty and discourage workplace innovation. SHRM supports a uniform federal standard that provides a clear framework for how employers should strive to prevent unlawful bias when using AI. We also support federal efforts to educate all stakeholders about the benefits and risks of AI in the workplace. As the trusted thought leader on all things work, SHRM is committed to helping employers responsibly navigate this new landscape, ensuring that AI enhances the workplace without compromising fairness, inclusion, and diversity. We also stand ready to provide Congress with our expertise on workplace issues to ensure that you are fully informed about the potential consequences of forthcoming public policy and legislative efforts. Thank you again for this opportunity to speak today, and I look forward to hearing your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our next witness, Dr. Karin Kimbrough, national expert on skills attainment. She is the chief economist at LinkedIn, and at LinkedIn, she is at the helm of LinkedIn's workforce research team, which assesses trends in skills training, demand, and attainment. Dr. Kimbrough.
Chairman Hickenlooper, Ranking Member Braun, and members of the subcommittee, thank you for inviting me to testify today. My name is Dr. Karin Kimbrough, and I serve as the chief economist at LinkedIn. I appreciate the opportunity to share our insights on how AI is impacting the economy, including skills, jobs, and industries. We believe that AI holds great promise and potential to enhance the productivity of workers and to allow them to focus on more meaningful aspects of their jobs. With AI tools becoming accessible to the workforce at large, the impact will be widespread. AI is here, and it is changing the way we work. Today, I want to discuss 3 key trends from our data. First, we are already seeing early influences of AI on jobs and skills. Second, employers are increasingly placing a premium on hiring and training AI talent. And third, workers are realizing the value and benefits of acquiring AI skills. Finally, I will touch briefly on the global AI talent marketplace and offer ideas and policy suggestions for this committee to consider. At LinkedIn, we think about AI talent in 2 ways: the technical builders who are developing AI tools, and the general users that will need to be AI literate. The earliest indicators of how firms are responding to the technological promise of AI comes from our hiring data. So far this year, the demand for AI skills has increased. For example, we've seen a 30% increase in the share of job postings for AI technical talent compared to 2023. The increase in demand has been even faster in the technology industry. This increase in demand for AI technical talent is also shifting the skills needed for today's jobs across all industries. Since 2015, the skills for the average job have changed by about 25%, and we expect this change to accelerate. By 2030, 2/3 of what we do at work every day will look very different. Despite this rapid change in skills, companies that use AI are not just hiring new workers with these skills, but are also initiating internal training programs to upskill their own workers. One example of this employer-provided training is NIQ, a US-based marketing research firm. It has been using LinkedIn Learning for employee training, including AI. More than 1,900 employees participated in NIQ's AI Learning Challenge, logging over 18,000 hours of AI learning content in the last year. Additionally, employers are looking to do more training. The Census Bureau has found that 1 in 5 companies using AI had recently trained its staff to use it, and nearly half of other companies plan to offer training in the next 6 months. Workers are also taking the initiative. They are upskilling on their own and going beyond what employers are providing as they begin to identify the opportunities of AI in their own work. Over the last 6 months, we have seen a 160% increase in non-technical professionals who are taking LinkedIn Learning courses to grow their AI literacy. These are workers in roles like project manager, architect, administrative assistant, and more than 500,000 learners have enrolled in our professional certificates for AI. In a competitive labor market, workers see the value of making their new AI skills known. And around the world, there are now 142 times as many members with AI literacy skills than there were just late last year. All of this matters on a global scale. For example, the US has 1/3 of the world's AI technical talent and 1/3 of the world's workers with AI literacy skills. However, other countries, like India, are developing their AI talent at a faster rate and are catching up. As this committee looks ahead at policies to prepare workers for AI, there are 4 areas on which I would encourage you to focus. First, continue the bipartisan efforts to promote policies which expand skills-based hiring in this country. Second, consider ways in which the reauthorization of WIOA can help meet the needs of workers in the new economy. Third, support efforts to encourage and enable employers, specifically small businesses, to upskill their workers. And finally, ensure that federal labor data are able to capture the impact of AI on our nation's workforce accurately and in a timely manner, including by leveraging public-private partnerships. Thank you for this opportunity to share more about LinkedIn's insights, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Dr. Kimbrough. Now we'll hear from Mr. Kotran. Mr. Kotran serves as the Chief Executive Officer for aiEDU, I guess you'd say aiEDU, an education-based nonprofit that partners with education and technology experts across the country to provide AI literacy training for our educators. Mr. Kotran.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members of the committee. I want to really appreciate the opportunity to testify today. My name is Alex Kotran. I'm the CEO of the AI Education Project. We are a nonprofit, and our mission is to bring AI readiness to classrooms nationwide by empowering our teacher workforce. Today, I appear before you today to underscore the urgent need to massively expand investment in teacher training and professional development. We need to ensure that we're preparing students for the profound changes that are coming with the disruption that AI is going to bring to our society and indeed our workforce. aiEDU is a 501c3 nonprofit. We were founded 5 years ago, and we've been leading a national movement to advance AI readiness and AI literacy. We define AI literacy as the collection of skills and knowledge that a person needs to confidently understand, ethically use, and critically evaluate artificial intelligence in a world in which AI is becoming more and more ubiquitous. We define AI readiness as the durable skills and the competencies that students, teachers, and school systems are going to need in order to apply AI literacy. Our work is anchored on a sophisticated national grassroots operation, and we partner with some of the largest districts and education systems in the country. We stand at the dawn of a transformative era. The AI revolution is going to define the trajectory of an entire generation of students and workers, and it's going to fundamentally change the skills that they need to compete in that workforce. The urgency and the pace of this challenge is hard to overstate. Less than 2 years ago, large language models, or LLMs, were virtually non-existent, and today, hundreds of millions of people are using them every day, and we're starting to see meaningful applications that are resulting in significant impacts on the future of work. I'm going to highlight one example. Last month, Amazon CEO Andy Jassy shared that their AI coding assistant, Amazon Q, made eye-popping advances in replacing and augmenting the company's software engineers. They replaced the equivalent of 50 developer days for a very simple task, uploading a Java 17 application. In total, Jassy predicted that the tool has saved the equivalent of 4,500 developer years. And moreover, 80% of the code that it writes does not require any editing by humans. Research into the potential impacts of LLMs in the workforce suggests wide-ranging applications and displacement, concentrated in some of the most common knowledge work careers in the US. I think most concerning, the National Bureau of Economic Research has conducted a study that found that historically the pace of automation-driven jobs displacement, it doesn't happen gradually, but rather it happens in these acute bursts in the months following recessions. I fear that the next recession, whenever it comes, will be the moment that we must all truly face the music. So what do we do? Our organization has learned, in more than 5 years of working with educators and school leaders across the country, that there is no one-size-fits-all approach. We need to work state by state, and in many cases, district by district, to create models that scale and massively invest in our teacher workforce. We've also leveraged partnerships with state agencies, school districts, and community organizations, all with the goal of building capacity amongst the teachers, the administrators, and the systems that support them to build the capacity and the competencies that they need to actually deliver and build the skills that ultimately students and workers are going to need. Our research underscores the urgency. What we found is that 72% of teachers, when surveyed, report only being moderately comfortable with AI at best. For our country to build a base of new skills, we need to significantly decrease that number rather. The goal of our education system must be to include an expanded focus on durable skills. We have to focus on critical thinking, communication, collaboration, resilience, adaptability, and digital citizenship. And these are best developed through live, engaging classroom activities facilitated by real educators. We believe that a range of AI competencies must be widely understood and achieved in our education system. And these include knowing the basics of AI, yes, but also being able to understand when to use AI and when to bring in and leverage the human advantage. In terms of recommendations, we really need to push forward a coordinated and concerted effort at the national, state, regional, and local levels to elevate the conversation and push for action around the skills and training for both teachers and students, and indeed our workers. Congress can create the right conditions, first and foremost, by routing more funds and creating the supports and the necessary investments, in particular, to provide schools with resources for teacher training and professional development. Funding aside, the hyperlocal nature of this challenge demands a national movement to elevate the conversation about AI readiness. And I believe all of you sitting here today have the trust and influence at your disposal to champion this message both here in Washington and at home. I want to close by underscoring that while educators are understandably concerned about the implications of AI on their jobs, at aiEDU, we firmly believe that teachers are critical to helping students build the skills they need to succeed. Put simply, our teachers are at the very heart of any solution to the future of work. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Kotran. Finally, we have Mr. Denzel Wilson. Mr. Wilson serves as the Grassroots Community Manager for Seed AI, where he leads efforts to facilitate community-based AI literacy training through a coalition of corporate and higher education partners. Mr. Wilson?
Thank you to Chairman Hickenlooper, Ranking Member Braun, and members of the subcommittee. Thank you for inviting me to testify today. My name is Denzel Wilson. I'm the Grassroots Program Manager for Seed AI. I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak on this critically important topic of preparing the American workforce for AI. Seed AI is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization working at the forefront of AI policy and governance. We work with policymakers, scientists, academics, and the private sector to design policies, programs, and tools to ensure AI benefits all Americans. Today's topic is a personal one for me because I grew up in Kankakee, Illinois, a county right outside of Chicago, where opportunities were scarce and career options were limited. After graduating high school, I faced several obstacles, including being laid off during the COVID-19 pandemic. That led me on an unexpected path. This setback sparked a pivotal career change. So in the fall of 2020, I decided to pursue my interest in AI by joining the AI program at Houston Community College. My efforts culminated in becoming the first graduate of HCC's Associates in Applied AI degree, a first not just for the college, but for the entire state of Texas. This experience paved the way for my current role at Seed AI, which I joined in 2023. Our goal with grassroots work at Seed AI is to turn AI anxiety into intrigue and turn that intrigue into opportunity. This work has revealed key lessons that can help prepare the American workforce for AI. First, students from community colleges, historically black colleges and universities, and other underrepresented demographics are hungry and capable of harnessing the power of AI to their advantage. And second, when presented with new perspectives and opportunities, students from these demographics thrive in environments that require resourcefulness and creativity. We do this in several ways, including running our Hack the Future initiative to inspire and educate participants about the potential of AI. These events have collectively reached hundreds of students, providing them with hands-on experience and valuable insights into the world of technology and innovation. Seed AI also helped conceive and organize the largest ever generative AI red team at the Hacker Convention, DEF CON, in 2023. This featured over 2,000 participants, including 220 students and entrepreneurs from Tulsa, HBCUs, and community colleges flown in by Seed AI and our partners. This unprecedented event demonstrated that there is a pathway for people from all walks of life to participate in shaping AI. Seed AI has also implemented a robust microgrant program to fill gaps we saw in the AI skill landscape. By the end of 2024, Seed AI will distribute over 90,000 in microgrants across 9 community colleges and universities, directly investing in the future of AI education and ensuring that a diverse range of students can participate in and contribute to the AI revolution. Lowering the barriers to acquiring AI skills is just one piece of the puzzle. Skills alone will only go so far. We need to invest in creating the infrastructure that all who wish to can access the computational and data resources necessary to meaningfully engage and co-create with AI. We believe community colleges are uniquely equipped to create opportunities for people that are capable of succeeding as scientists and engineers, but do not have access to pathways that lead into those careers, what the NSF calls the missing millions. This is why Seed AI is proud to partner with the NSF-funded National Applied Artificial Intelligence Consortium, an initiative launched by 3 community colleges, all of which were awarded microgrants from Seed AI in 2024. Applied AI skills are the key to unlocking the benefits of fundamental AI advancements, as well as well-paying jobs and sustainable careers for all Americans. Seed AI is also proud to participate in the Tulsa Hub for Equitable and Trustworthy Autonomy, which was recently awarded $51 million by the U.S. Economic Development Administration. We view partnerships like the Tulsa Hub and the National Applied AI Consortium as critical last-mile components of things like the National AI Research Resource, These partnerships address the critical need to ensure that the research from the NAIR can be co-developed and leveraged by communities across the country. There is both incredible appetite and untapped potential in American workers and students nationwide to participate in and benefit from AI. CDI is eager to work with members of this subcommittee to help realize the vision of preparing the American workforce for AI and leverage the lessons we've learned from our grassroots work. There are several key opportunities we think would help make this happen as fast and as equitably as possible that I'd be happy to discuss today. Most importantly, we encourage the subcommittee to leverage its power of attention. Progress on this topic requires robust public-private partnerships and tapping all stakeholders in the government, industry, and academia to make changes to facilitate greater participation in and access to AI opportunities. We can transform the AI ecosystem to one that is more inclusive and participatory, more geographically diverse, and more beneficial for all Americans. Thank you to Chairman Hickenlooper, Ranking Member Braun, and members of the subcommittee. I look forward to answering your questions.
Terrific, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Let me start the questioning. Am I missing anything? I always look to the ranking member because he really actually understands politics much at a deeper level than I do. When I'm in trouble, he kicks me under the desk, or nudges, I should say. Anyway, Mr. Kotran, aiEDU is launching AI literacy initiatives across the country, including a recently launched partnership in Colorado. How do you work with local leaders and employers to help customize the training resources and ensure that they are responsive to local or regional training needs?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So our work is really different state to state. Colorado is an example of a state where we have actually found the opportunity to push forward a statewide initiative. So in Colorado, we've worked with an organization called the Colorado Education Initiative, which actually used to work directly with school districts and spun out into an independent nonprofit. And we've essentially plugged in as a subject matter expert for CEI. CEI over the past year has convened hundreds of stakeholders across the education system, the workforce, and the political community. And this is really top-down advocacy work to create the demand and the awareness for not just the goalposts, which are how do we make sure that teachers are trained and students are ready, but also creating awareness about what are the systemic components that have to be in place, which ultimately comes down to training and building capacity with teachers.
Got it. Thank you. Mr. Wilson, as we undergo this new technological revolution, we want to make sure that workers aren't left behind. How do you think that federal government can best position training resources to make sure that they reach traditionally underserved workers, including those in rural communities, those who might speak different languages, those completely outside the technology industry?
Thank you for that question, Chairman. I would look at it from the perspective of, I'm looking at it from a community college perspective. I think community colleges across the country are the most representative of communities and constituencies. And I think if we put focus on those two-year programs and actually doing workforce-related programs and putting funding towards those programs, it more so prepares students to be ready to work right after they get that two-year degree, instead of the traditional, you transfer from a two-year and then go to a four-year and then try to get a career. A lot of students at the community college level are actually equipped, and if there's just more funding put towards it, I think it'd be very beneficial for students coming with a two-year degree to be able to get into the workforce.
Great, thank you. Mr. Meyer, as some employers have been experimenting with AI applications, we've seen that creating opportunities for workers to provide feedback is important. So what steps are you taking, or should others be taking, to collect feedback from workers about their experiences as they interact with these AI applications? And how would that feedback impact your efforts going forward?
Thank you very much for the question, Senator Hickenlooper. First of all, employers, as most of them are doing right now, need to have their open door policies for their employees to come in and their workers to come in to tell them, like, this is what my experience has been, and this, because employers then should take that feedback and use it to improve the employee experience. Because, just from a personal standpoint, as far as I see, the biggest value for AI is for people and organizations to focus on what is really important. The WRI, what's really important. Whatever your what's really important is, or whatever organization you're at, using AI and having people who can use it will give those individuals the time, the organizations the time to focus on their WRI, what's really important. And you're never going to know what's really important unless you're speaking to your people.
Great, thank you. Dr. Kimbrough, we know that AI has the potential to impact workers across all industries, all levels of experience. What are some of the most in-demand technical and non-technical AI skills being sought out by employers, and does LinkedIn's data mirror training participation for those skill sets? Or those workers across industries, are they seeking out such training opportunities, and are there perhaps some industries that are more engaged in training than others? Let's say it nicely.
Thank you, Chair Hickenlooper. I would say that in terms of the most in-demand skills that we see both for like technical talent and non-technical talent, starting with technical, it's very clearly things like generative AI, machine learning, generative neural networks. Things like that are highly technical, and these are used by engineers who are forming and building these models and training them. The non-technical AI skills for the average person who wants to build their literacy is more around use of tools in the workplace or at home. It could be things like Copilot or ChatGPT. So just basic applications. But if you go broadly and you say, what is LinkedIn doing? And I think that was the other part of your question, is how do we think about what we see in our data? There are industries that are adopting it more quickly than others. We do see industries such as retail, administrative, and administrative services, and also, I would say, actually, think about things like even in hotels, accommodation, restaurants, they are all starting to adopt generative AI tools.
Interesting. All right, I'm going to turn it out of my 5 minutes, but I'll be back. We get to have second rounds, I suspect. Senator Braun.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Meyer, when I look at technology as it came on the scene decades ago, it scared certain generations. The ones that grew up with it seemed to embrace it, and it was like a second language or second nature. When you compare that to AI currently, talk a little bit about the generational difference. In other words, kids that have grown up with technology, do they view AI as just a new horizon? And for the folks that didn't grow up with it, how do you explain this to them?
And you're right, it is. It's you know, some of this stuff can be, in fact, really scary. I'm just thinking about, you know, when my mom had to use a computer for the first time when she was working in healthcare. And because that's how I got my job in healthcare, just like a lot of people do. Their mother or father worked in healthcare, and that's where you wound up. But I have to tell you, I think people are excited about this technology. And something to think about, the most amazing thing about AI is that we look at it today, and this is the worst it's ever going to be. It's only going to get better from here, and it's only going to get more advanced from here. So when we're looking at it now, in like 3 or 5 years down the road, it could be completely different. But you're right, we've been dealing with multi-generational workforces in HR for the last 2 decades. And this is certainly something that we are going to have to focus on to alleviate people's anxiety when it comes to HI for those who may not be as tech savvy. But also on the flip side of that, it's also a great reverse mentorship opportunity for organizations where you have younger generations in the workforce actually mentoring older generations in the workforce. It's actually pretty cool to think about stuff like that going on. And that's something where we at SHRM and my colleagues who are in the HR profession, we've been dealing with this for the last, like I said, definitely for the last 2 decades. And a lot of us are looking forward to the opportunity.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson, would you want to weigh in on that as well, with emphasis especially on the generation that is still trying to learn technology that's been thrown in their lap that didn't grow up with it?
Yes, sir. Great question, Senator. From my perspective, I grew up in the generation with technology, obviously. So this isn't really a new phenomenon. You know, we grew up watching many robotic movies and AI taking over the world. So it's kind of something we've been primed for. Whereas my parents and, my uncle's generation, they kind of were more uneasy about it. And I think that's where the AI anxiety portion that I talked about previously comes in, because we know there's a lot of anxiety around, what the possibilities of AI are. So I think it's important that both parties, all age groups, all generations, get a clear understanding and foundational knowledge of how AI can be beneficial, but also the risks. And I think just with the older generation, we may have to push that message a little more, just because it's something they're not used to. But I do think that message needs to be consistent so we can get to the intrigue portion where people aren't so afraid of what AI can do.
Thank you. Dr. Kimbrough, recently we've seen some states, localities attempt to implement policy in the AI space. New York City enacted a law regulating employers' use of automated employment decision tools in hiring and promotions, requiring employers to audit their HR technology systems for bias and publish the results. In California, the governor signed an executive order that directs state agencies to adopt a proactive approach to AI regulation and to leverage the state's procurement power to promote so-called trustworthy AI principles. Are we at the point where we know what trustworthy AI principles are? And based upon what you've seen early out of the gate, what do you think of actions like we've seen here in New York and California?
Thank you, Ranking Member Braun. Well, I would say, from my perspective as an economist at LinkedIn, I think we're all searching to commit ourselves to an area where we have the most responsible AI principles. At LinkedIn, this is exactly how we operate. We seek, for example, which is what I can speak to, we seek to put our members first. So where we can uphold trust, where we can promote fairness and inclusion, where we can be extremely transparent, those are the kinds of principles that we adhere to in our own work at LinkedIn, to put members first and kind of create this vision of inclusion. And I think it also empowers people when they understand how it's being used. They feel more empowered, and there's more trust there. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Kotran, so much of this arena is a competition with other places that will find a way to use it more productively, or on the other side of the spectrum, maybe come at you with it from a less wholesome point of view. What do you worry about? How do you see kind of the way we handle it vis-a-vis what other countries are doing? And you can see where they'd want to probably be on the leading edge of it, ideally, to make their economies more productive. Or do you fear that this will be something we're going to battle, similar to what we do with the malfeasance that we've got in our own technological world, where you got folks out, using it with ransomware and other ways where they've used it as a negative tool? Where do you see AI on that kind of a pivot point of good versus evil?
Yeah, I think, you mentioned
I saved the best question, I think, for you, okay?
Thank you, Senator. Look, there's a lot of examples of bad ways that bad actors can use AI. I think when I look at what other countries are doing relative to the US, I'm concerned about the fact that we are really on the back foot in terms of being ready for the economic displacement that's going to come from these tools. Like, make no mistake, AI may not be coming for teachers' jobs. It is coming for doctors, lawyers, designers, mathematicians, engineers, data scientists, paralegals, assistants, customer service managers, marketing managers, advertising managers. These were all careers that the University of Pennsylvania and OpenAI identified as being nearly fully exposed to large language models over the next 5 years. And again, this is not necessarily going to happen gradually and comfortably. It's going to happen all at once. If you are a company with $5 billion in in revenues, your revenues are down, your profits are down $1 billion in the middle of a recession, and your margin's 20%. You can increase sales by $5 billion, or you can cut costs by $1 billion. Companies are going to cut costs. They're going to use these tools to make up the difference as they lay off workers. And what I'm concerned about is the fact that in the US, we do not have a plan to make sure that we are talking not just to the current workers, because that's a huge issue, but also to students who are making big decisions about what career path do they go. Which college career do I invest in? Should I spend $200,000 to go and get a law degree or a computer science degree? And you have the smartest experts in the field saying those jobs are going away. And at the same time, that conversation is happening in places like this in Silicon Valley. It's not happening in schools, and that's really concerning to me.
Thank you.
I think one of those vulnerable jobs might be that of a U.S. Senator. You never know. Senator Kain.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks to the witnesses. So if I'm a 30-year-old Virginian watching this, I would, wow, I should become AI literate. I should improve my employability and future career by gathering skills. But it's not just about getting skills, it's about getting skills that come with a credential, whereas if I move to Virginia, to Vermont, or to Vegas, I'm bringing a skill, but I'm also bringing a credential that an employer will recognize, okay, yeah, you've got the skill. Are there, industry standard recognized credentials in the AI field that are portable like that, where I could gain the credential and move somewhere else in the United States and an employer, human resources professional would look at it and say, yeah, okay, we understand that. I see you shaking your head no, Mr. Kotran.
I think thank you, Senator. There's often this reflexive reaction to say, well, yes, can we create an AI credential? What are the AI jobs of the future? And when you talk to folks, some people say, well, prompt engineer is the job of the future. And to me, that's as ludicrous as going back to 1998 and saying a Google search engineer is going to be a job of the future. Right. We do not know what the jobs of the future are. If you're 30, the real question is, how are you going to build the soft skills, the critical thinking, the ability to work in teams collaboratively?
You called those durable skills in your opening testimony. I like that better than soft skills.
I think that's right. And I think that's actually a really big area that we need to focus on, is how do we actually codify what these skills would look like, especially in a world where the workforce is going to change faster than these credentials, and frankly, our education system is going to be able to change. And this is a really big blind spot that we have. This is like a huge tanker ship we're trying to now navigate down, river rapids. And the best answer that I can come up with is the teachers, the professors, the schools, the folks who are really thinking about training our teams, they are on the front lines. And to me, it's really scary, the fact that a company can depreciate an investment in an AI tool and get a favorable tax treatment for that. They can't depreciate an investment in employee upskilling.
Yeah. Dr. Kimbrough, you used the phrase, we should expand skills-based training in your testimony. So obviously, we are moving from a world where it's about degrees to degrees are great, but also skills, credentials, as long as they're valid, are great. What did you mean when you said things we can do is to expand skills-based training?
Thank you, Senator Kain. When I was talking about skills-based hiring in particular, if I may use that term, I was thinking a lot about the data that we see at LinkedIn, which if we think about what are required skills for a job and push away the idea of like what credential do you have, even if it was a degree, a former title, prior experience, and just say what skills are you able to perform, what we find is that for any role, on average, you can increase the pool of eligible candidates, sometimes by as much as 20 times. Yeah. So if I may, I would just say what I think can happen is ideally we would be promulgating more pathways for employers, for recruiters, for state and local and federal government roles to be skills-based as opposed to, let's say, degree-based or prior experience, because you pull in many more people. And I would just add one last point, which is that what we found in our own data is when you expand that talent pool by thinking about what people either can do or potentially can do as a skill, you actually include more underrepresented people. So, for example, women are 26% more represented when you look at a skills-based pool than a non-skills-based pool.
We have a lot of work to do here in Federal Policy. Senator Braun and I are working on this. We think Pell Grant should not be just limited to college degrees. Why not high-quality career and technical education? And yet we've had a long bias against career and technical education. Should be high quality, but why would we benefit college and not that? The military has tuition assistance programs for active duty. My son used to be a Marine officer. He could approve somebody in his platoon for up to $4,500 a year for a college class. But if he had an ordnance specialist who was trained like in welding, and all they needed was $300 to take the American Welding Society certification exam, which is a credential, it's completely portable, he'd have to say, no, I can't give you $300 because it's not college. Mr. Wilson, I'll finish with you if I can real quick. Community college, I think this is a key part of this, and I imagine a lot of the folks who gain these skills at a community college, they are there to gain the skill, not necessarily the associate degree. And sometimes the best way to gain the skill is in a short-term, high-intensity class that isn't a 15-week-long semester and hence is not eligible for Pell Grant. Am I right about that?
I believe our program was available for a Pell Grant Center. Now, what I will say is the workforce element at the community college level, I think, is what we should really pay attention to. It's a 2-year format where you are actually working on what you're going to be doing once you graduate instead of taking that first 2 years to do general education classes. You're actually doing the hands-on work, and that's why the applied degree comes into play, because you've actually applied the skills to something, whether it's in your last class, that you have to take, or whether it's an internship you got to do over the summer. You've actually experienced that, and you're more equipped to actually get into the workforce. And I think if we pay attention to these degree programs, there are a lot of community colleges around the country. Houston Community College is a great example. Miami-Dade College, Chandler-Gilbert Community College. These are community colleges that took the initiative to start AI workforce programs at their school. And now some of them have been able to turn it into a bachelor's at the community college level, which many people didn't know was possible. So I think it is very beneficial. I've seen the students coming out of these programs. I'm one of them. A lot of them are very well equipped. A lot of them are very sound in what they know, and they're very hungry. They just need, many companies maybe change their hiring practice or human resource departments to take off the master's or bachelor's degree requirement because they know they're already capable with their 2-year degree that they got.
As I hand it back to the chair, we're looking at the same thing with federal hiring. Do you have to have a college degree to get a lot of federal jobs? And the answer is no. Do you have to have a college degree to be assigned by a federal contractor to work on a contract with the federal government? If you have the skills to do the job, it shouldn't be restricted to those with college degrees when we are in a skills-based world these days. Thank you. I'll yield it back.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. We did back when I was governor in Colorado in 2017, I guess, 2016 and 2017, we went back and looked at pretty much every job that we offered and basically downgraded almost half from saying you had to have a college degree to saying what do you really need to be successful in this job. And oftentimes we'd put the college degree in there because it was part of that emblem of achievement that made people feel that the person was responsible and a good worker in some way, whereas that really was no reflection of the skills necessary for that job. And I think that's a good point, obviously. Senator Budd.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I thank the ranking member as well, and I appreciate what each of you all bring to this conversation as we wrestle with this in the Senate and Congress in general. I think this is an issue which I think in your term, Mr. Wilson, brings anxiety for many and eagerness and anticipation for a lot of others. So I'm on the optimistic side, but though I acknowledge the whole spectrum here. And I'm a believer in the promise of innovation here in the U.S. I think that the advancements in AI are going to change how jobs are done. Some of you mentioned that, and not necessarily eliminate them in total. Dr. Kimbrough, given LinkedIn's unique insights into employment trends, what kind of changes do you think AI is going to make to the types of jobs, not that are going to be eliminated, but the ones that are going to be in demand over the next 5 to 10 years? And are there specific industries or sectors where you foresee job growth due to the advancements in AI?
Thank you, Senator Budd, for that question. It's a really hard question, actually, and I am sympathetic to what Mr. Kotran said about
We're betting on what you have to say.
I know, I recognize that. I'm starting to sweat here. Yeah, what I would say, well, one I would say is it's really hard to know what the jobs of the future are. I'll give you an example of why I say that. Every year, LinkedIn puts together a list of the fastest growing jobs that we see on our platform, and there are millions of jobs on that platform. This year, 2/3 of the jobs on that list did not exist 20 years ago. So I'm very humble as an economist that it is hard to forecast. But I want to answer your question. So what I would say is some of the things that I think are likely to be actually most in demand are some of what we're calling the durable skills or the human skills. And oftentimes people ask me, what should my child be learning or studying? And I'm like, abstract problem solving, critical thinking, communication. Some of these skills are the most in-demand skills every year on our platform. Communication, collaboration, leadership, strategy. So these are the things that I don't expect AI to replace. Thank you.
Sure. Maybe some of the community college skills. I was thinking of the heat generated through some of this computing, and that involves a lot of plumbing and processing and HVAC. So there's a lot of skills like that, perhaps.
We do actually, sorry to interject, we do see a lot of demand for electrical engineers, electricians, mechanical engineers, plumbers, truck drivers.
Absolutely. In a landscape where AI is becoming more widely used in the workplace, it's more important than ever to be able to quickly reskill and upskill workers, as many of you all have talked about. That's why I introduced both the Pell Act and the Employer-Directed Skills Act. The Pell Act would allow Pell Grants to be used for short-term programs, I think like the welding program that you mentioned. This would allow job seekers to enter the workforce faster and make their skills align with the current needs in an AI-driven world. The Employer-Directed Skills Act will give employers more resources to prepare job seekers for open jobs. This is another way to make sure that we're leveraging workers to fill changing roles as AI changes the demands of the workforce. Dr. Kimbrough, can you share how you think that some of these legislation, not just these, but maybe some others even, will help job seekers and employers prepare for jobs that are going to change as a result of AI?
Yes. So from our data at LinkedIn, what we see is there is a huge scarcity of AI literacy talent or AI technical talent. There just isn't enough. There's much more demand than there is supply for this. And I don't think that we're going to replicate or close that gap very easily. So it's just really critical to have as many pathways as possible to create opportunities for America's workforce to reskill and upskill in a continuous fashion, not just a one-off, I go through community college and I'm done, but really, and not to put down the idea of community college, very supportive of it, but really opportunities to have small learning. And so one of the things that I would say is we very much support anything that extends the pathways, even if they're to short-term programs where people can quickly get credentials to be ready to work in the workforce to meet this scarcity, this huge demand for AI literacy that isn't being met.
Thank you very much. One comment, several comments I wanted to make. I know your parent company, Microsoft, recently announced a deal to restart, this is really outside of maybe some of your projections, but they restarted the 3 Mile Island nuclear power plant in Pennsylvania. The power plant would develop data centers, which have a growing demand as AI develops and is used more widely. Just one query in ChatGPT is estimated to use 10 times as much energy as a simple Google search. So for the first time in decades, our power our power requirements are going to increase. But I'm very concerned. I mean, I see articles like in today's Wall Street Journal, and it continues on about the need for more clean energy, or the steps to get to clean energy. So I'm very concerned about the current administration and their positions in regards to clean energy. They don't support it. Vice President Harris, she's been on the record supporting banning fracking. A lot of that out of Pennsylvania, which has allowed us to be a net exporter of energy. We need all forms of energy, including natural gas, which has 50% fewer carbon emissions than coal, our biggest competitor, China, is going to be using. And we're not talking that they're going to be using clean coal technologies either. And you can bet that China will make sure that they have the energy that they need to surpass us in AI. So as we think to the future, in the near future, I hope that we keep that in mind regarding our energy needs here in America. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Budd. Senator Markey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you so much for having this very important hearing. We've heard extensive discussion today about the importance of educating and training the workforce for the increasing use of AI, but we must also prepare the workforce by protecting workers from the potential harmful, and discriminatory impact of workplace AI tools. Over the past decade, companies have increasingly integrated AI into their hiring, their firing, their worker management. And time again, we have seen how the biased and discriminatory algorithms powered by AI are used to hire, to assess, and to set working conditions that can hurt the workers. Here are some of the examples. Algorithms that match candidates with job opportunities that refer more to men than women for open roles. Generative AI chatbots that systematically weed out resumes from black men, from the LGBTQ community. An AI that surveils call center workers and grades their performance that are more likely to sanction black women for the tone of their voice. AI, the sinister side of AI. And that's unacceptable. To each of the witnesses from left to right, yes or no? You agree that algorithms used to hire and make employment decisions should be free from bias and discrimination? Dr. Kimbrough, all the way down.
Yes, at LinkedIn, we're committed to upholding the principles of responsible AI. Yes.
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 Yeah, and that's why yesterday I introduced my AI Civil Rights Act of 2024. Comprehensive legislation that would prevent discriminatory algorithms from being used in critical decisions, including employment, because we cannot prepare our workforce without protecting our workers simultaneously. This technology is Dickensian. It's the best of technologies and the worst simultaneously. It can enable, it can ennoble, it can degrade, it can debase. It can do it all. And we want the best, but we also build in safeguards to protect workers, from being discriminated against. And I'd also like to take this opportunity to seek unanimous consent to enter into the record a letter from the National Nurses United, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Without objection.
And as the letter states, the development of clinical algorithms, quote, involves significant use of judgment by their creators and creates the opportunity for creator bias from conflicts of interest, limited perspectives on the lives of racial minorities, or implicit racial bias to be introduced into the algorithm. And that's why my AI Civil Rights Act would require companies to test these algorithms for discriminatory impact before their use, preventing biased AI from being incorporated into resume screening, job recommendations, worker performance, and even healthcare decisions. Make no mistake, we can have an AI revolution while also protecting the civil rights and liberties of everyday Americans. We can support innovation without supercharging bias and discrimination in our society, and we can prepare workers while safeguarding their rights. And I might also add, while talking about the fact that a GPT search consumes 10 times more electricity than a Google search, yeah, we're going to need more electricity in our society. But the industry is going to have to build in more efficiency into their AI technologies. They're promising to find the cure for cancer. Well, let's figure out how to make the industry more efficient. Can't be having a search consume 10 times as much energy as a Google search. Do that work. Use AI, I guess, because you're promising to find the cure for cancer. How about finding a way to do all this much more efficiently? What are the algorithms you're using to do that? And in addition, it's very disheartening for Donald Trump to promise to repeal the IRA, to repeal the wind and solar and battery storage technology subsidies that are transforming our country, which can make the use of electricity much more benign in terms of greenhouse gases. So he did say to the natural gas industry, if they give him $1 billion, he'll repeal the IRA. Well, that's the way in which we can make AI compatible with the climate goals that we have simultaneously. And I just I heard an earlier comment, and I just throw that in, that we just can't say it's going to be coal and natural gas, because we know that we have a renewable revolution that's also happening, and we can't stop that. We can't slow it down. We have to make sure that we move forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, very much.
Thank you. Senator Casey.
I have nothing for today. We can go ahead.
Senator Braun, you has to run. Do you have additional questions?
Yeah, I'm going to, since we didn't pass into another question, I want to go back to the original or the ending conversation we had. Geopolitical competition, to me, is so important, and we are at that kind of point in time where there's so many things at stake, and we've got this new, and I think the point has been made, we're going to see what opportunities and challenges are created by it. For anyone that would have a view on it, I'd like to know what areas of commerce, industry, and then what countries have gotten out fastest using this. And has there been any malicious use of it to date, or has it all been beneficial? I mean, because we watch this, we hear about it. Do you keep track of it? Who has been out on the leading edge, either in an economy, a country, or a sector of commerce or industry? We can start over here, Dr. Kimbrough.
Yeah, so I really can only speak to the kind of data that we see on our platform at LinkedIn, so I'm really speaking about talent trends here. But in terms of building up capacity for skilling, I would give one example, which I think is a very interesting one, perhaps not scalable for the US, where in Singapore, for example, there's been, the government has actually provided training funding for every single citizen of Singapore so they can upskill in AI. Now that's a smaller country than the US, but that's one example. Another example I would just point to is we see very fast growth in AI literacy and technical skills in countries like India and Israel. And so there are a range of places where the technical training is just growing much quicker than it is in the US.
They're already ahead of us.
Well, I would say the US has the most, in terms of level, the US is very competitive. We have a third of the AI technical workers in the US are here, and a third of the AI literacy skills are in workers in the US. So we have quite a bit, but the growth is faster in other countries.
Mr. Kotran.
Yeah, I mean, really, I mean, this is a game between the U.S. and China. I think we're still, as far as I understand, we're still in the lead. Although what we're seeing from China is interesting. One of the things that they just have an advantage over us is with respect to the actual regulation of the technology. One of the things that they recently announced is a requirement for AI-generated images to be tagged as such. And this is happening at a time when in the U.S. there's been rampant issues of students making use of nudification apps, which are basically AI apps that can take an image of somebody and declothe them. And this is happening in high schools all over the country. And the companies are based in places like Belarus. So we don't have the ability to shut these companies down. In the U.S. and in the West in general, we are hampered by the democratic system and the fact that we have to sort of iteratively build the regulations around as the technology evolves. There's advantages and disadvantages to that.
Mr. Meyer.
Okay, I don't have any intimate knowledge of your question. However, I do say at SHRM, one of the things we believe in is AI, artificial intelligence, plus HI, human intelligence, equals ROI, return on investment. So I think we are ahead, but I think other folks are catching up. And I think it's really important. But one of the things is and I just want to add this, is that when it comes to catching up or staying ahead, one of the great things about AI is the individuals have the ability through AI to exercise a lot more of their own ownership over their own professional development. And I think that's the really amazing thing about HI, is that you can really own your own development. And that's how organizations and individuals will be growing with this technology. So,
Mr. Wilson.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Ranking Member Braun. I don't have any information in front of me today to really give you a solid answer. What I would like to follow up with your office with some more information later.
Thank you.
So if he leaves, then I've got you all to myself. This is every senator's dream. I thought it would be interesting, and I won't keep you too long, I promise. But I think that this notion of where do we get our standards? How do we codify? What's the appropriate way to do this? It ties back into that, a little bit, that disadvantage that we have compared to totalitarian countries where they could just decide that everything's going to be somehow watermarked or there'll be transparency on what is and what is not AI. Personally, I think that's should be one of our absolute imperatives with the greatest sense of urgency. But I'd love to hear each of you just talk about where do you think, how should we go about finding the standards, the guidelines for this? And Dr. Kimbrough, I was also going to ask you, just because I'm so out of touch, how big is LinkedIn? How many members do you were talking about your members. How many members do you have?
So worldwide, LinkedIn has over 1 billion members. They are not all online at the same time. But yeah, we have over 1 billion members. In the US, it's just about 200 million.
Gosh, talk about energy usage. Anyway, so what's your slant on this notion of how do we codify standards? Where do we get standards and how do we codify them?
You know, Chair Hickenlooper, I'm a macroeconomist, so I'm not gonna, I don't want to wiggle out of the answer, but what
I'm an out-of-work geologist, and they expect me to have an opinion on these things.
I'm sure you're way smarter than I am. What I would say is, I think that where we stand at LinkedIn is really thinking about how do we embrace accountability for what we do? How do we ensure that we are transparent about what we do? How do we make sure we put our member first, which is paramount for us? And starting with those kinds of principles, everything we build, every design choice we make is around ensuring that we are providing value to the member first and protecting them.
Great. Mr. Kotran?
Yeah, I'm also going to defer on, talking about specific policies. What I'll say is, I think it is folly for us to ever imagine that we can regulate away the risks that AI poses. I think there's like soft examples of like a worker making a decision to use an AI tool to screen an applicant or even to like write interview questions. And it'll be very hard for us to really think about what would it even look like to have regulation that completely blocks that. And then there's also logistically things like a watermark, a digital watermark. I mean, it just may be impossible for us to truly block all the companies that are going to provide people with the ability to create AI images because many of them will be overseas and out of jurisdiction. But I will say that whatever the standards are, you have to have an informed and educated populace, and we have to actually build social norms. And the same, the social norm, like nobody has their phones out on the table, and that's something that you go to dinner, people don't sit and that you turn your phone over. I think there needs to be a norm where someone shows you an AI-generated image of somebody, and you almost respond like aghast, like, oh my God, did you ask permission to create their image? And like, I think right now we haven't really quite figured out what is the role of, even just sort of these social norms or these soft standards, let alone the hard ones.
Yeah, although those norms are dependent upon somehow some standards, some regulations in place, and we know we're not going to get to everybody who runs a stop sign, right, or slides through a yellow light, or runs a red light, right? But we still have those regulations, and so if we had watermarks, certainly we're not going to get everybody. But once you set the rules, you're going to get 98%, and you'll at least have an avenue to go after the people that abuse the system.
If I may, so I actually started my career in AI, working on AI ethics and governance, and we worked with NIST on how do you set standards for the use of AI in the legal system.
Well, just parrot back some of that stuff. Come on.
Well, so what I would say is, you attend any conversation about AI ethics, and you're going to hear the same things. You're going to hear algorithmic bias is something that we need to deal with. You're going to hear about how to make sure there's a human in the loop. And I've heard this rhetoric for now, 6, 7, 8 years. And so none of this is new. I mean, we actually know, roughly speaking, what what we need to aim towards. Now, there's like very tactical, practical policy questions of, do we create laws and enforcement mechanisms? And if not, then I think we have to answer the question of like, well, what are the other incentives that we can create, whether it's for businesses or otherwise? But I just don't know that we can, I don't think business standards by themselves are sufficient.
Right. Well, we can discuss that more fully later. Mr. Meyer, what's your sense on some of this notion of standards?
I guess, you know, the standards that are going to be set essentially are going to come from you, Senator Hickenlooper, and others like you. But here's the thing, and this is the most important thing, there needs to be a balance between responsible use, and responsible use should be paramount. These tools need to be developed, they need to be used without bias, and they need to be developed and they need to be used without hallucinations. Those are the two big things. However, we also need to not have rules in order that eliminates the use of this technology from employers and organizations like say, my community health center. For every dollar we spend on new technology, that's a dollar that we're taking away from patients. But we do understand we have to have a balance in our finances. But in New York City, you know, layering on top and on top of the decision we make to spend the money on the technology, then to have to now spend the money on the auditing and all it is. Essentially, New York City made the decision for us not to use that technology. That's what happened, because it's just too darned expensive. And I think that there are over 1 million nonprofits in the entire country. 1 million. And many of these serve underserved communities. So the thing is, this technology can really help us serve people better. I would just think there needs to be a balance in whatever standards, rules, laws, regulations are developed that allow for organizations to use and develop technology while at the same time protecting people from bias and from hallucinations that come along with the technology. And I do not envy your job. That is going to be very, very difficult. We understand that. But that's where we fall. That's where.
I won't complain. I mean, my grandfather told me when we were little, if you're lucky enough to sleep in the bed that you made, don't complain. So I won't do that. But I do think it's interesting to get different viewpoints on where should the standards come from, and should it be NIST? You know, should it be you know, some other, maybe even more global entity whereby it forces people to come together and make some of the accommodations and assumptions that allow us to get to a place where, as you're saying, even as we're continuing to improve those standards, we've got pioneers out there experimenting and you know, creating new innovations.
You know, but Senator, on the plus side, and I mean a real good side, is you have people like us that are willing to help you out with it.
Exactly.
You know, we at SHRM, we're fully prepared to help you out with it.
That's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
Mr. Wilson.
Yes, sir. It was a great question, Chairman. Let me throw you a bone here. So CDAI strongly supports the NIST AI Risk Management Framework, as well as other entities like the AI Safety Institute and the National AI Research Resource. We believe that if these entities were funded and given the leeway to actually build and test and develop the standards, that is the direction that we should go.
Whew. Youth. We've got lots of youth on the panel. And Mr. Well, you know, we didn't get a chance to get to it, but I thought your story in Houston of how you, at the community college, and how you kind of found a whole new avenue through. Why don't you tell a little bit of your story? I don't want to embarrass you, but
yeah, no, it's no problem,
put it in
sir.
a statement. So
yeah, so growing up, I was more so focused on like football. I'm a huge football guy. I played football 20 years of my life. And I was always sort of ashamed of showing that I was, you know, intelligent. You know, I was an honors kid in high school, but I had to keep the a certain image of, captain of a football team. So once I graduated, I kind of was able to get more so into what I actually was passionate about, which is technology and helping people. So when I got to Houston, after moving around 3-4 other states, it was a new start for me, and I saw that it was an environment that allowed people to thrive. It's a healthy innovation environment, and there were a lot of hungry people. And I don't know if it was by luck, but when COVID hit and I was laid off, and Houston Community College magically had just started an AI program, I think it was just a match made in heaven, and I took it and ran with it, and I wanted to galvanize other students around the same thing. So we built a pretty large community out there around AI. We actually, me and some of the students started an AI conference at the school, and the school ended up picking it up, and they do that event every year now. So there's a lot of good things that came out of that program. We just kind of want to spread it across the country and kind of get everybody on the same page as far as what we need to do.
Something we can all promote far and wide. I love that story. Certainly the potential of AI to create that catharsis in people, I think, is tremendous. And however we work with teachers and teachers unions to make sure that we accelerate and amplify those opportunities is going to be powerful. College Board, I know that they look at different types of AP tests now that might be skills-based and might move in a different direction than what you traditionally think of as, AP chemistry or AP biology. I think AI is going to allow for that. We've had several hearings here on apprenticeships and how important it is to have a lifetime learning. I think almost all of you said something either in your statements or today where you referred to that sense that we're going to be learning new skills. Everyone's going to be learning new skills for their whole lifetime. And how do we facilitate that? In other words, do we need apprenticeships for people at all ages? Is there a way you can go and work part-time in a different role so that you can acquire new skills? And that's I own my little secret. I don't always blurt it out, but we got so excited about someday having a centralized place with all the skills and figuring out how do you have a set of standards about if you've got this patch mark, what skills have you got and how can you demonstrate that you are competent with those skills? But I own and I'm donating this to government. This is not a for-profit thing, but I own myshot.com. If you've ever heard the musical Hamilton where he says, "I'm not throwing away my shot. I'm not throwing away my..." Well, that's where myshot.com is going to take all the work that all of you are doing and have it in one place and allow that lifetime learning, that application of lifetime learning to really, really grow. Because I think that's the only way we're going to deal with this. This is going to be a transition over the next 20 years. Look at clean energy. All these things are happening at once. And we're going to look back 50 years, 80 years from now. We're going to look back at this as the beginning of the great transition. So anyway, you guys are all part of that. Thank you so much for coming and spending your time. I've got to read my closing statement so I don't legally forget something. If anybody has a final statement, something you think the United States Senate should absolutely know? I guess I've worn you out. In that case, this will end today's hearing. I want to thank again all of our colleagues who were able to join us in person, people watching online, and especially I want to thank our witnesses, Ms. Kimbrough, Mr. Kotran, Mr. Meyer, Mr. Wilson. Thank you for your participation. I know you're all just as busy as we are, and you took time out of your lives to be here for our country. Any senators who wish to ask additional questions for the record will be due in 10 business days, so on October 9th by 5:00 p.m. Committee now stands adjourned.